I had the opportunity to play some of the Hell Let Loose beta over the weekend after the Call of Duty Vanguard beta put me in immense amount of pain. I was like, let's try this other World War II shooter that looks pretty cool. So that's what I did, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, without further ado, remember if you enjoyed today's video to leave it a nice, thick, and juicy like. Of course, enjoy this kind of content, you want more like it, be sure to hit that big red sexy subscribe button right underneath the video. Also been streaming a ton lately, been just awesome hanging out with you guys on stream. If you want to swing by and say hi, be sure to hit that notification bell. Last but not least, gotta thank my channel members. You guys help make these videos possible. If you want to join, get access to the exclusive perks that they get, and be sure to check out that blue join button. Anyway, let's begin. Now, I know going from Call of Duty to a game like Hell Let Loose is quite the contrast, but it was a bit of a breath of fresh air. Hell Let Loose is an extremely complex game. It is very much a hardcore World War II experience that tries to immerse you inside of the war, so much so that they've gone to the length of recreating maps based off of photographs of these specific battles, making these massive layouts of these areas, and it's really, really cool how they do it. Now, like I said, it is a very much hardcore experience. It is not something you're just gonna hop in, pick up, and play. That being said, I do think that they could have a better way of explaining some of the ways that the game works. Like I said, you're not going to pick it up, jump in, and understand at all what's happening within a particular match. There is a field manual in the menu that you can read and go really in depth with how the game works, and it does a good job at explaining the game, but I think a more visual representation, something players can just grab and go and experience about how the game works, maybe even step into a tutorial for various roles, whether it's commander or squad leader or the various infantry roles, as well as even vehicle roles. Just, you know, an optional tutorial where you can either go in and just experience the basics or go in and go really in depth with how to play each particular role in the game. Something to get people on board. I think Enlisted is a good example of a game that did this very well and is of a similar aspect. It's hardcore, not quite as hardcore as Hell Let Loose, but I would say they're much more similar to each other than Hell Let Loose is to, say, Battlefield or something like that. Now, that being said, it is hardcore, but it's not 100% milsim. It's definitely not on the level of a Post Scriptum or an Arma or something like that. It's hardcore, but I would say it's closer to hardcore Battlefield than it is to Arma or Post Scriptum. Now, going into a reason why I think they should help to explain the way the game works and why it is so hardcore is they've added this really cool element of logistics. If you know anything about history and you know anything about warfare in general, logistics is a much larger chunk of the actual combat than the history books would lead you to believe. Logistics are what wins wars. And in Hell Let Loose, as a commander, you basically manage the logistics by managing 3 different resources, being of course manpower, munitions, and fuel. Now again, it's just an example of how complex the game is, because this is just essentially a basic part of the game, and understanding how it works and how you can effectively fight in the battle. A good comparison is, so you have manpower, munitions, and fuel in Hell Let Loose. In Battlefield, you essentially only have manpower. Those are your tickets. Those run out, you lose. In Hell Let Loose, you have to manage all 3 of those to keep your troops supplied, keep your tanks running, and to keep, you know, troops on the ground would probably be something you want to keep going. Otherwise, that fuel and munitions isn't exactly going to be very useful. Now, as much as this plays into the gameplay, this also plays into the atmosphere, which this game pulls off wonderfully. I already said how the maps are designed after various locations from the war. They based them off of photographs they had to be able to make them as true to life as possible with some minor changes in order to enhance gameplay. But once your boots are on the ground and you are in the fighting, these maps really do come to life. It's honestly incredible what they pulled off in an atmospheric sense with this game. These maps are so huge. I mean, you see an explosion off in the distance. In another game like, say, Call of Duty, that's just some scripted background cinematic stuff that's just happening. It's not very high res. Here in Hell Let Loose, that's just a part of the battle, and that could have been you for all you know. But it happened way over there, and you could go and try and investigate. Might take a while to get over there, or you could stick to where you are and try to hold the position you're in. You never know. It's just part of the game and part of the experience and part of the massive conflict that they are bringing across with this atmosphere. I also want to say one of my favorite parts of trying out this beta, and one of my favorite parts about the atmosphere, is when you first start out and you're kind of slowly approaching the front. Like I said, it's not like Battlefield where you can really just go and find any vehicle anywhere. They're not really that plentiful. There were times where I did get in a vehicle and I was driven up to the front lines, and that was very convenient. But when you're making the long walk, there is definitely a cool suspenseful atmosphere to it as you slowly approach. There's this really cool part of Hurtgen Forest where you're kind of going through this normal looking forest. You're like, all right, the enemy could be anywhere. And then the hell opens up. The just devastated landscape in front of you opens up and you really start to feel it. And then as you go through it, you start to hear the gunfire, you start to hear the explosions, you start to see the explosions, then you start getting suppressed by machine gun fire, and then there's the enemy. And it's a really cool kind of build up to the conflict, and it gets you into it, and it kind of builds this kind of feeling in your stomach like the enemy could be anywhere. There's definitely this tension in the air with every step that you take, and I think that's really, really cool, and it really helps to build up this all-out warfare type of feeling. Now, in terms of mechanics, this game is a hardcore experience down to the very last detail. There's no HUD, there's no aim assist. I know it's primarily a PC game, but it is coming to console, and that's how I experienced it on my PlayStation 5, and there's no aim assist, so you're not gonna be like Warzone where it's just swinging your cursor all over the map. There is none. It's all down to you, and there's a lot of really cool aspects to that. I also want to touch on another part of the atmosphere that also kind of ties into the gameplay, is just the way the haptic feedback on the PS5 works. I mean, it's so incredible. You really feel the tension as you start to pull down on the trigger, and the shot pops and the tension releases, and it's just an incredible feeling just to simply shoot a gun in this game. And the haptic feedback is such an awesome aspect of that. You also feel it when you reload, you feel it when you are getting shot at, you're getting suppressed, you can feel it. You can feel the taps on the ground around you. It's just amazing how they did that. That being said, the gunplay is, I would say, relatively simple. I mean, most guns are going to kill someone in one shot. I didn't really get a chance to use any automatic weapons in my short play session, but using the semi-autos and using the bolt action German rifle, the Kar 98K, those felt really, really nice to pick up and just start firing shots downrange. It felt really, really good. Now, from what I could tell from the general mechanics of the gameplay, they work well together. Again, I didn't get to experience too much of them because a lot of it relies on team communication. Because I'm assuming I was on console and because player counts are relatively low, I was only playing with maybe 50 to 60 players at a time on servers intended for 100 players. It was a bit slowed down. I never had a commander on my team. My squad leaders were not communicating very well. This is a game where you need communication. You need a team who's on the same page. You need people to be able to come in and talk to each other. There's a reason that there are 3 chat channels, because there is no spotting in this game. There's nothing like that. And I do worry that that's going to be an issue as you come to console and it's a bit more of a casual audience, is there's not going to be as well of a communication. Sure, there might be a broader player base, but I don't know that the mechanics are going to work out as well simply because of that. I mean, you can ping an area and tell your squad that, hey, there's people over there. But if you go to the proximity chat and try to talk to them, they may not talk back at all. And there was a couple times where I was pinned down with a couple of my teammates and no one is talking at all about where the guy is, where he's shooting from, and we just kind of sat there for a while as he laid suppressive fire down on us. If any of us peek our head up, we're probably going to die, and we're not going to communicate where we saw the muzzle flashes from, so that wouldn't have mattered anyway. And that's something to definitely consider if you are thinking about picking up Hell Let Loose, is be prepared to come in and communicate, because the game relies heavily on it in a mechanical sense, how it works and how it can be played in its best. Personally, I would love to return to this game with a squad who are talking to each other and communicate and see how effective it is, because I can tell you there were enemy squads who were very effective in how they moved around the map and how they took us out, because they were able to navigate and talk to each other with pretty good ease, and they took us out with even more ease. Overall, my thoughts on Hell Let Loose is that the game is very complex and there's a lot to learn and a lot to take advantage of in this game. It's definitely hardcore. It's not all the way milsim, and it's not 100% historically accurate. There are weapons in certain battles that weren't really there, but that's okay. I can suspend my disbelief. They've gone pretty damn far to make sure that this feels like World War II. There's nothing ridiculous really going on that makes you just crack your skull open with disbelief about, Jesus, why is this here in a World War II game? But it's also not a pick up and play shooter. It's not something that you can just download one day, turn your brain off, and go in and play. It's something you're going in with friends to be able to have a very specific experience, and that's fine. I'm glad a game like this exists. I don't think it's a bad thing. I'm not going to sit here and tell you, oh, well, Battlefield does it this way, so Hell Let Loose should do it and it'd be a better game because of that. No, they're different games and they're different experiences, and there's a dedicated audience that really loves this game, and the developers are dedicated to this game, as you can tell by the painstaking detail that they go to make the experience experience that we have here. I think mechanically it works wonderfully when people are actually taking advantage of the mechanics, and I think that's going to be the big issue that they're running into. I do think that a tutorial would be very nice for a lot of players and maybe emphasize how much communication matters with things like proximity chat, with things like the squad chat, and of course the command chat. That being said, I'm very hopeful for this game in the direction that it's going, and I'm very much looking forward to its release in early October. Let me know down below what you guys think of Hell Let Loose. Are you guys thinking about purchasing it? Have you tried the beta? And what are your thoughts? Let me know down below. I'll see you guys in the next video.